In July 2024, Saudi Arabia released a video, 37 seconds of computer-generated imagery that made architects around the world pause, rewind, and watch again. A football stadium, perched on the edge of a cliff, 200 meters above the desert floor. One entire side of the structure open to the void, offering spectators a view, not of seats or screens, but of the Tuwaiq escarpment stretching into the Arabian horizon. The Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium, named after the Crown Prince himself, located in Qiddiya, the entertainment megacity being constructed 45 kilometers southwest of Riyadh, designed to host World Cup matches in 2034, then become the permanent home of Al Hilal and Al Nassr, the two biggest football clubs in Saudi Arabia. Cristiano Ronaldo's club, playing home games 200 meters above the ground. The stadium would seat 46,979 spectators. It would feature a fully retractable roof. One side would be enclosed with the world's largest LED video wall, capable of transforming into a transparent window or displaying content visible from kilometers away. The other three sides would hold spectators in conventional seating arrangements. The fourth side would hold nothing but air. Construction was announced to begin in 2026. Completion targeted for 2029. Cost estimated at approximately $500 million, though Saudi megaproject costs have historically exceeded initial projections by factors of 2 or 3. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some called it visionary, a stadium unlike anything ever built, a structure that would redefine what sporting venues could be. Others called it impossible, an engineering fantasy, a rendering that would never survive contact with reality, geology, and the laws of physics. Both groups asked the same question. Can they actually build this? The answer is more complicated than either side imagined. To understand the stadium, you need to understand the cliff. The Tuwaiq escarpment is not a mountain. It is an ancient seabed, lifted and tilted by geological forces over hundreds of millions of years, now forming a dramatic ridge that runs for approximately 800 kilometers through central Saudi Arabia. The name comes from the Arabic word for surrounding or encircling. Escarpment wraps around the Nile Plateau like a natural fortress wall, with cliffs rising between 100 and 250 meters above the surrounding terrain. At Qiddiya, the escarpment reaches heights of approximately 200 meters. The rock is primarily limestone, formed from the compressed shells of marine creatures that lived in shallow seas during the Jurassic period, 150 million years ago. Limestone is beautiful. It carves into dramatic formations. It photographs well against desert skies. Limestone is also problematic for construction. Unlike granite or basalt, limestone is porous. Water seeps through it, dissolving calcium carbonate and creating underground voids. Over geological time, these voids can expand into caves, sinks, and unstable zones that appear solid from the surface, but hollow beneath. Building a conventional structure on limestone requires extensive geological surveys, foundation work that reaches stable bedrock, and engineering margins that account for the rock's tendency to behave unpredictably under load. Building a 46,000-seat stadium on the edge of a limestone cliff requires something more. Faith that the cliff itself will remain stable for the structure's lifetime. Cliffs erode limestone. Cliffs erode faster than most. The very drama that makes the Tuwaiq escarpment visually stunning. The sheer drop, the layered striations, the overhangs and caves, is evidence of ongoing erosion that has shaped this landscape for millions of years. The engineers designing the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium are not unaware of these challenges. They have access to the most sophisticated geological survey technology available. They will drill test bores, conduct seismic surveys, analyze rock composition at microscopic levels, but geology operates on timescales that human engineering cannot fully comprehend. A cliff that appears stable over decades may be in the early stages of failure that will manifest over centuries. A foundation that bears load successfully for 30 years may trigger stress fractures that propagate for 50 more before sudden collapse. When you build on the edge of a cliff, you are betting against time itself. Saudi Arabia is making that bet. The stadium's designer is Populous, the global architecture firm responsible for some of the world's most iconic sporting venues. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, Wembley Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium. Populous knows how to build stadiums. They have designed more than 3,000 venues across 6 continents. Their engineers understand structural loads, crowd dynamics, sight lines, acoustics, and the 100 other variables that determine whether a stadium succeeds or fails. The Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium is unlike anything they have built before. The design calls for the structure to be literally carved into the cliff face, not built on top of the escarpment, but integrated with it, using the rock itself as part of the stadium's structural system. This is not unprecedented in architecture. Cave dwellings have existed for millennia. Modern buildings have been constructed within cliff faces in Norway, China, and the American Southwest. But those structures are typically small. A restaurant, a hotel, a museum. Spaces measured in hundreds or thousands of square meters, serving dozens or hundreds of people at a time. A stadium serving 47,000 spectators generates forces of a different magnitude entirely. Consider the dynamic loads. When a crowd celebrates a goal, they jump. Tens of thousands of people, moving in approximate synchrony, create vibrations that propagate through the structure. In a conventional stadium built on flat ground, these vibrations are absorbed by foundations that extend deep into stable earth. In a cliff-edge stadium, those vibrations propagate into rock that is already under geological stress. The cliff face is not a stable foundation. It is a surface in slow motion, constantly adjusting to erosion, temperature changes, and the weight of the rock above it. Now add the structural loads of the stadium itself. Concrete, steel, seating, roof systems, lead walls, mechanical equipment, tens of thousands of tons, concentrated on foundations that must be anchored into cliff rock, without destabilizing the very formation that supports them. Now add the retractable roof, a moving structure that must operate reliably in desert conditions, where sand infiltrates mechanisms. Temperature swings from 50 degrees Celsius days to 10 degrees Celsius nights stress materials, and wind loads at 200 meters elevation exceed those at ground level. Now, add the open side. The stadium's signature feature is also its greatest structural challenge. Conventional stadiums distribute forces around a continuous ring. The Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium will have a gap in that ring, a structural discontinuity that must be bridged by engineering solutions that bear enormous loads while appearing invisible. Populous has not released detailed structural plans. We do not know exactly how they intend to solve these problems. What we know is that solving them will require innovations that have never been tested at this scale. The stadia is not merely ambitious. It is experimental, and experiments, by definition, can fail. Why build a stadium on a cliff? The practical arguments are weak. A cliff edge location complicates every aspect of construction, operation, and maintenance. Access roads must climb hundreds of meters. Emergency evacuation becomes exponentially more complex. Utilities must be routed through challenging terrain. Construction costs multiply. A stadium built on flat ground near Riyadh would serve the same functional purpose at a fraction of the cost and risk. The answer is not practical. It is psychological. The Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium is designed to create an experience that cannot be replicated anywhere else on Earth. Not just a football match, but a football match with the Saudi Arabian landscape as backdrop. Not just a stadium, but a statement about what Saudi Arabia can achieve. The open side of the stadium will face the Tawakkiyah. During evening matches, spectators will watch football as the sun sets over the cliff edge, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple that no LED wall can duplicate. The view is not incidental. It is Saudi Arabia is building the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium for the same reason it is building the Line, the Muqab, and the other megaprojects that define Vision 2030. To demonstrate that the kingdom can do what other nations cannot imagine, the stadium is a monument disguised as a venue, a symbol masquerading as infrastructure. This is not a criticism. Monuments have value. The Sydney Opera House is a notoriously impractical performance venue, yet it defines Australia's international image and generates economic value far exceeding its construction cost. The Eiffel Tower serves no functional purpose, yet Paris without it is unthinkable. The Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium aspires to similar status. It will be photographed, filmed, and broadcast to billions of viewers during World Cup 2034. Every image will convey the same message. Saudi Arabia builds what others only dream. Whether that message justifies the cost, the risk, and the engineering challenges is a question that only time will answer. The view from the cliff edge is spectacular. The view of what that cliff edge might cost is less clear. These clubs currently play at different venues in Riyadh. Al Hilal uses the King Saud University Stadium. Al Nassr uses the same venue, alternating home match. Both clubs have used the larger King Fahd International Stadium for major fixtures. Moving both clubs to a shared 47,000-seat stadium at Qiddiya represents a fundamental shift in Saudi football geography. Qiddiya is not in Riyadh. It is 45 kilometers southwest of the capital, a 40-minute drive under ideal conditions. Fans who currently attend matches in central Riyadh will need to travel significantly farther, through desert terrain, to reach the new stadium. For casual supporters, this distance may prove prohibitive. Match attendance could decline if the stadium feels too remote, too difficult to access, too far from the urban centers where fans live and work. So the authorities are aware of this challenge. Qiddiya's master plan includes extensive transportation infrastructure, highways, a planned metro extension line 7, dedicated bus routes, and parking facilities capable of handling World Cup-scale crowds. Whether this infrastructure will be completed by 2029 remains uncertain. Saudi megaprojects have consistently faced delays. The Riyadh Metro opened years behind schedule. The line has been scaled back dramatically. The Muqab has been suspended entirely. If the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium opens before its supporting infrastructure is complete, the spectacle of a cliff-edge venue may be undermined by the reality of traffic jams, inadequate parking, and fans abandoning matches due to access frustrations. Ronaldo, meanwhile, will be 44 years old in 2029. Whether he will still be playing professional football at that age is unknown. His contract with Al Nassr does not extend that far. The stadium, built partly on his star power, may open after that star has moved elsewhere. Football is a business of timelines. Construction takes years. Careers are measured in seasons. The alignment of a stadium's completion with a star player's tenure is a gamble that does not always pay off. The Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium is not merely a club venue. It is a World Cup venue. FIFA has designated it to host group stage matches, round of 32 matches, round of 16 matches, and the third-place playoff for the 2034 World Cup. These designations carry deadlines that cannot be negotiated. The World Cup begins in late 2034. FIFA requires host stadiums to be completed and tested well in advance, typically at least 1 year before the tournament. This means the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium must be fully operational by late 2033. At the latest, construction is scheduled to begin in 2026 and complete in 2029. This timeline provides a 4-year buffer between completion and World Cup use, enough time to address problems, conduct test events, and ensure the venue meets FIFA's exacting standards. But Saudi megaproject timelines have proven unreliable. The line was supposed to be well under construction by now. Instead, it has been scaled back from 170 kilometers to 2.4 kilometers, with reports suggesting further pivots toward data center use. Qiddiya was supposed to host the 2029 Asian Winter Games. Those games have been indefinitely postponed. The Muqab was supposed to anchor Riyadh's transformation. It has been suspended. If the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium follows similar patterns, its 2029 completion date could slip to 2031, 2032, or beyond. At some point, slippage threatens the World Cup timeline itself. FIFA is not a forgiving partner. When Qatar faced concerns about stadium readiness for World Cup, the organization maintained intense pressure that contributed to the worker deaths that have since drawn international condemnation. FIFA's priority is ensuring the tournament proceeds on schedule, not ensuring the process of preparation is humane or reasonable. Saudi Arabia will face similar pressure. The Cliff Edge Stadium is not just an architectural experiment. It is a commitment to FIFA, to the global football community, and to the billions of viewers who will watch World Cup 2034. If that commitment cannot be met, the consequences extend far beyond construction delays. Building a stadium on a cliff requires workers, thousands of them, operating at heights of 200 meters, in temperatures that exceed 45 degrees Celsius during summer months, using equipment that must be transported up winding mountain roads, living in conditions that have drawn sustained criticism from human rights organizations. We do not know exactly how many workers will be involved in the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium's construction. Saudi authorities do not publish detailed workforce statistics for megaprojects, but we can estimate based on comparable projects. The Riyadh Metro employed over 30,000 workers at peak construction. These workers will face unique hazards. Cliff edge construction is inherently dangerous. Falls from height are the leading cause of construction fatalities worldwide. Building at 200 meters elevation, on rock faces that may be unstable, with winds that increase with altitude, multiplies fall risk exponentially. Desert, heat, compounds, the danger. Construction workers in Saudi Arabia have reported collapses due to heat exhaustion. Saudi law technically prohibits outdoor work during the hottest hours of summer days, but enforcement has been documented as inconsistent. The Amnesty International report on Riyadh Metro workers described conditions where workers would collapse on site due to heat exposure. The kafala sponsorship system, though officially reformed, continues to bind workers to employers in ways that limit their ability to refuse dangerous assignments, report safety violations, or leave the country if conditions become intolerable. Saudi Arabia has the resources to build a stadium on a cliff. The question is what that construction will cost in human terms. Human Rights Watch and Fair Square documented in May 2025 that workers on World Cup stadium sites had died from decapitation, electrocution, and from falling to their deaths, with Saudi authorities failing to protect workers from these preventable deaths. The Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium has not yet begun construction. The human cost of building it remains unknown, but the patterns established by other Saudi megaprojects suggest that the spectacular view from the cliff will be built, in part, by workers whose safety is not the kingdom's primary concern. The stadium's open side will feature what promotional materials describe as the world's largest lead wall. This wall must accomplish multiple functions simultaneously. Transparency mode. The wall must become effectively invisible, allowing spectators to see the Tuwaiq escarpment without obstruction. Display mode. During events, the wall must show content, potentially displaying advertisements, replays, or atmospheric visuals, visible not just inside the stadium but from the surrounding Qiddiya development. Weather protection. Despite appearing open, the wall must provide some protection against dust storms, temperature extremes, and the desert wind that sweeps across the escarpment. These requirements are partially contradictory. Maximum transparency conflicts with maximum display capability. Weather protection conflicts with the sensation of openness. Current LED technology cannot fully meet all these requirements. Transparent LED displays exist, but they sacrifice brightness and resolution compared to conventional screens. Large-scale transparent displays that maintain image quality in direct sunlight, at the scale required for a stadium, do not exist in deployable form. Saudi Arabia is betting that by 2029, 5 years from now, the technology will be ready. This is not an unreasonable bet. Display technology advances rapidly. What seems impossible today often becomes routine within 5 years. The smartphone in your pocket contains display technology that would have seemed magical in 2009. But technology development is not guaranteed. Sometimes breakthroughs take longer than expected. Sometimes they require compromises that undermine the original vision. Sometimes the physics simply does not cooperate with the ambition. If the LED wall technology does not mature as expected, the stadium's signature feature may need to be redesigned. The open side might become less open, more enclosed, more like a conventional stadium. The view of the escarpment might be partially obscured by structural elements that the original design intended to eliminate. The promotional renders show perfection. Reality may require compromise. In 2034, if everything goes according to plan, a goalkeeper will stand at the edge of the pitch in the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium. The goal behind him, 47,000 spectators. Around him and behind them, nothing but the Tuwaiq escarpment dropping 200 meters to the desert floor. It will be a photograph unlike any in football history. A moment that'll define Saudi Arabia's World Cup in the global imagination. Whether that moment happens depends on questions that have no certain answers. Can engineers build stable foundations in limestone cliffs? They believe so, but limestone has surprised engineers before. Can construction maintain the 2029 deadline? Possibly. But Saudi megaprojects have missed deadlines before. Can workers build safely at these heights in this climate? With proper protections? Yes, but proper protections have not been Saudi Arabia's historical priority. Can the LED technology deliver the promised experience? Perhaps. But the technology does not exist yet. Can the stadium attract fans to a location 45 kilometers from Riyadh? If infrastructure is completed, but infrastructure has been delayed before. Each question carries uncertainty. Combined, they create a project where success depends on many independent variables, all breaking favorably. The stadium may be built. It may host World Cup matches. It may become the iconic venue that Saudi Arabia envisions. The view from the cliff edge may justify every dirham spent, every risk taken, every worker who labored in the desert heat. Or it may join the line. The Mukab and Trojena in the category of Vision 2030 projects that were announced with spectacular renders, but delivered with significant compromises. We cannot know which outcome will prevail. The stadium exists, for now, only in computer-generated imagery and promotional documents. Reality has not yet tested the vision. What we know is this: Saudi Arabia is attempting something genuinely unprecedented, a stadium that treats gravity as a suggestion, a venue that makes the cliff itself part of the spectacle, a structure that embodies the kingdom's conviction that sufficient money and will can overcome any obstacle. That conviction has been tested before. The line tested it. Trojena tested it. The Mukab tested it. The results have not always matched the ambition, but the sun will still set over the Tuaik Escarpment in 2034. The cliffs will still glow orange and purple as evening falls. The view will still be spectacular. Whether a stadium stands there to frame it or not, Saudi Arabia is building for that view, building at the edge of possibility, building on rock that is older than human civilization, betting that human engineering can make it stable enough to bear the weight of 47,000 spectators and the dreams of a kingdom. The void below the stadium is 200 meters deep. The void between vision and reality may be deeper still.